In the early hours of a humid Alabama morning, a correctional officer walked into the east wing of the women's facility to do a standard cell check. The air was heavy, the silence unnerving. When he reached cell 213, he paused. Something didn't feel right. Inside that small, dimly lit cell, a woman lay perfectly still on her bunk. Her eyes were open but lifeless. The room smelled faintly of bleach and metal, a mix that instantly raised suspicion. On the wall, just above her bed, someone had written 2 words in shaky handwriting. He laughed. The officer froze. He called for backup, his voice trembling as he repeated her name. Inmate 4227 Angela Brooks. Moments later, alarms echoed through the prison halls. Inmates stirred, whispering in confusion as word spread that someone had died inside the East Wing. Angela Brooks, 33 years old, serving time for fraud and assault, had been found dead under mysterious circumstances. But what made this case different wasn't just how she died, it was who she had been involved with before her death. Rumors had already been swirling among inmates. They said Angela had a secret connection with the prison warden, a man with authority, power, and a reputation for getting what he wanted. Some said she used to visit his office at night. Others claimed they'd heard things that didn't sound like business. But the story that would soon shake the entire state of Alabama began not with love or revenge, but with something far stranger. According to those who knew Angela best, her death wasn't random. It began the night she laughed during one of those secret encounters, a laugh that humiliated the wrong man in the worst possible way. The official report would call it a medical emergency. But what investigators found over the next few days told a different story, one that revealed the dark truth behind the walls of the most secretive women's prison in Alabama. And before this story ends, you'll understand why Angela Brooks's final laugh was the one that cost her everything. This is not just another prison tragedy. This is the story of what happens when power, humiliation, and forbidden desire collide inside a place meant to break people. Stay with me. If you're new here, welcome. This channel exposes real stories buried behind prison walls and hidden reports. If you love deep, chilling investigations, hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on the bell and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I read every one of them. Now let's get back to Angela Brooks. When guards entered her cell, she was already gone. Her body was cold, her room too spotless, and the security camera above her door had mysteriously stopped recording hours earlier. The warden, Leon Barker, arrived shortly after. He looked shaken, but his first order wasn't to call the coroner. It was to clear the area and silence the staff. The report they filed claimed Angela died of cardiac arrest, but everyone who knew her said she was healthy, full of energy, and had no medical history. The official story didn't add up. By sunrise, her body was gone, her cell cleaned, and the prison acted as if nothing had happened. But the whispers had already begun, whispers that pointed to something far darker than a heart attack. And every one of those whispers led back to the same man, Warden Leon Barker. The discovery of Angela Brooks's body sent quiet waves of panic through the prison staff. Officially, it was handled as a routine death in custody, but behind the scenes, something didn't sit right. The officers who found her couldn't shake what they saw. The clean floor, the faint smell of bleach, and that chilling message on the wall. He laughed. One of the nurses who examined her body before removal said Angela's expression didn't look peaceful. Her jaw was tense, her eyes wide, like she'd seen something terrifying right before she died. But that note, those 2 words, became the biggest question. Who was he? And why would laughter matter so much? By mid-morning, the cell block was on lockdown. Inmates were confined to their cells and guards were told to keep their mouths shut. The warden himself supervised the cleanup, insisting everything be handled internally. It was the kind of command that told everyone not to ask questions. Outside the walls, however, the death of a healthy 33-year-old inmate caught the attention of the local press. They demanded answers. The prison responded with a short statement. An inmate was found unresponsive and later pronounced dead. no foul play suspected. But inside those walls, inmates were already talking. Some claimed they'd heard Angela arguing with the warden days before her death. Others swore they saw her leaving his office late at night wearing a look that wasn't fear, but disgust. When investigators finally entered the prison, they weren't allowed near the East Wing for the first 48 hours. By then, whatever evidence had existed was gone. Still, a single guard came forward quietly, saying something that would open the first crack in the cover-up. He said, "That night, the warden was in the East Wing. He left just before the alarms went off." Those words changed everything, because from that moment this wasn't just about Angela's death. It was about what the warden was doing in her cell that night, and why someone wanted it erased so badly. Before her name became a headline, Angela Brooks was just another woman trying to survive a hard life in Birmingham, Alabama. She grew up in a broken home, raised by a mother who struggled with addiction and a father who disappeared before she turned 8. By her early 20s, Angela was already used to fighting for everything: money, respect, and love. She had a sharp tongue, a quick temper, and a charm that could talk her way out of anything. But her choices would eventually lead her behind bars. Angela worked as a loan officer before things went wrong. She got caught in a fraud scheme involving stolen checks and fake IDs. The case hit the news because of how bold it was. She'd managed to scam over $50,000 before getting caught. The judge called her manipulative. Angela called herself desperate. During sentencing, she said, "I did what I had to do. Nobody ever gave me a chance." Those words earned her 3 years in prison and a reputation that followed her inside. But once behind bars, Angela wasn't the type to stay quiet. She had this energy that drew people in. Inmates listened when she spoke. Even guards noticed when she walked by. She was confident, outspoken, and smart enough to earn small privileges others couldn't. It didn't take long before she caught the attention of someone she never should have: Warden Leon Barker. Barker had been in charge of the facility for nearly 10 years. A strict man on paper, but inmates whispered about his double life. He favored certain women, gave out benefits quietly, and had a way of making those who pleased him feel protected. Angela, with her fearless attitude and boldness, intrigued him from day one. Some said she reminded him of someone from his past. Others said she was the only inmate who looked him straight in the eye. At first, their connection seemed harmless: small talk, smiles, and favors. But soon, things changed. Angela started getting called to the warden's office late at night. Her cellmates joked about it, saying she was untouchable now. But what they didn't know was that behind those closed doors, Angela wasn't laughing. She was terrified. And that fear, hidden behind her strong front, would slowly turn into the reason she never made it out alive. Life inside the Alabama Women's Correctional Facility was brutal. The walls smelled of rust and sweat, and the air was always thick with tension. Fights broke out over the smallest things: food, phone calls, even blankets. The guards kept order with fear, not rules, and everyone knew better than to cross anyone with authority. But Angela Brooks was different. She moved like someone who refused to be broken. She earned small jobs around the facility, helping with paperwork in the admin block. A rare privilege for inmates. That job gave her something most prisoners never got: access. She could walk near offices, talk to officers, even glimpse things others only whispered about. And it was during those long days in administration that she caught the eye of the warden. At first it was glances and polite words. Then one evening he told her to stay after hours. From that moment, her life inside those walls changed forever. Angela's cellmates began to notice the difference. She got extra meals, longer shower time, even clean uniforms when others wore worn-out ones. But her eyes told a different story. Sometimes she'd stare at the wall for minutes, lost in thought, or wake up trembling from nightmares. One inmate, her closest friend, once said Angela confessed, "He makes me feel like I owe him everything, but I don't." Rumors spread quickly. Some said she was sleeping with the warden willingly. Others said she was forced. No one could prove anything, but every inmate knew. Once the warden wanted you, you either gave in or disappeared to solitary. And Angela wasn't the kind to stay quiet for long. She started writing letters, hiding them inside books, notes that spoke of fear, threats, and secrets she planned to expose once she was free. But those letters never left the prison. Weeks before her death, she told a fellow inmate she was done being quiet. She said she was going to end whatever was happening between her and the warden, even if it meant trouble. That same night, she was seen leaving his office for the last time, her face pale, her hands shaking. No one saw her alive again after that. The relationship between Angela Brooks and Warden Leon Barker started as quiet favors, but turned into something far more dangerous. At first, he offered her things no one else could get: extra food, private visits, early release promises. But every favor came with a price. Barker was known for control. Behind closed doors, he reminded Angela who held the power. What began as manipulation soon became fear. Angela tried to end it more than once, but each time she did, her privileges were stripped away. Her calls were cut, her mail was searched, and her cell was moved farther from her friends. Inmates whispered about the late-night visits to the warden's office. Some said they heard voices. Others claimed they heard crying. No one dared to report it. Everyone knew that crossing Barker meant punishment, or worse. Still, Angela wasn't the same woman anymore. She began keeping a journal, documenting every encounter, every threat, every time he reminded her that she belonged to him. That journal would later disappear after her death, but a few pages survived, hidden by another inmate. On one page, she wrote 6 chilling words. "He thinks I'm too proud to break." That pride would soon become the spark that set off the chain of events leading to her death. It happened on a stormy night, just days before Angela's death. She was called to the warden's office again, the same routine she had come to dread. But this time, something was different. Witnesses said they heard shouting, a crash, and then silence. According to an inmate who worked nearby, Angela later told her what happened. During the encounter, something went wrong. Barker tried to assert control, but Angela, fed up and humiliated, laughed. Not out of joy, but out of disbelief. That single laugh hit him harder than any insult could. It shattered his pride. For a man like Barker, who ruled through fear, that laugh was unforgivable. He told her, "You'll regret that." Those were his last words to her. After that night, Angela stopped eating, stopped talking, and told a friend she felt like she was being watched even in her sleep. Days later, she was found dead. And written on her wall, in her handwriting, were the same words she'd once said about him. He laughed. That was no coincidence. It was her final message. After Angela's death, the prison went silent. The warden ordered her cell sealed within an hour. Her body was removed before sunrise, and the security footage for that night was mysteriously erased. Officers who worked the East Wing were told not to speak to anyone outside. The official report claimed it was a medical issue, but nothing about the scene fit that story. The camera failure, the bleach smell, the fresh sheets, it all looked staged. Yet anyone who questioned it was quickly reassigned or suspended. A few inmates tried to talk, but they were silenced too. One woman who said she saw Angela taken from her cell at night was sent to solitary the next morning. Another who claimed to have found one of Angela's hidden notes suddenly got transferred without warning. The phrase, "he laughed," became forbidden inside the prison. Guards warned inmates never to mention it again. But even as they tried to bury her memory, whispers spread. Whispers that the warden had lost control the night she died. And though the world outside thought the case was closed, one investigator refused to let it go. Detective Marlon Hayes was assigned to review Angela Brooks's case after the prison's report raised red flags. He had seen cover-ups before, but this one felt deliberate. Every file he requested was either incomplete or missing. The autopsy photos were blurred and the cause of death listed as undetermined cardiac failure. When he visited the prison, the staff avoided eye contact. Only one young officer, clearly nervous, whispered that the warden had been in the East Wing hours before Angela was found. That detail was never in the report. Hayes dug deeper. He found inconsistencies in the time logs, signatures that didn't match, and a sudden deletion of surveillance data from 2:00 to 3:00 a.m., the exact window Angela died. Then came the biggest clue. One of Angela's old letters was found hidden inside a book in the prison library. In it she wrote, "If anything happens to me, it wasn't my heart." That line changed everything. The investigation was no longer about an inmate's death. It was about exposing the man who thought he could rewrite the truth. Detective Hayes kept pushing until one guard finally broke. He admitted that on the night Angela died, the warden called for her to be brought to his office around midnight. No paperwork, no witnesses, just his order. She never came back. Forensics later confirmed faint traces of bleach and skin tissue under Angela's nails, proving she fought back. The warden's shirt, collected quietly by an officer who feared the truth, contained a single drop of her blood on the cuff. When confronted, Warden Barker denied everything. He claimed Angela was unstable and had likely harmed herself. But his voice cracked when Hayes mentioned the writing on her wall. He laughed. The silence that followed said more than any confession could. Barker knew exactly what those words meant. They were his undoing. Within weeks, he was suspended, and a grand jury opened an inquiry that would finally expose what really happened inside that prison. The trial of Warden Leon Barker drew national attention. Reporters lined the courthouse steps as the man once praised for his discipline and leadership was brought in wearing handcuffs. Inside, the courtroom was tense. Former inmates, correctional officers, and Angela's family filled every seat. For the first time, the truth about what went on inside those prison walls was finally being spoken out loud. Witness after witness came forward. A former officer testified that the warden had a history of private meetings with female inmates. Another admitted that he was ordered to clean Angela's cell before investigators arrived. Each statement peeled back another layer of lies. The jury sat in silence as Detective Hayes read Angela's letter, her final words, telling the world she didn't die from her heart giving out, but from a system that allowed a predator to hide behind power. When the verdict was read, Barker showed no emotion. Guilty of second-degree murder and abuse of authority. As the judge's voice echoed through the courtroom, Angela's mother wept quietly. The warden only lowered his head. He never looked at her family, never apologized. He was sentenced to life in prison, the same kind of cell he once used to control others. But justice, as powerful as it sounded, felt incomplete. The Department of Corrections quietly settled with Angela's family, sealing most of the documents from public view. Some officers lost their jobs, but many returned months later. The prison itself went back to business as usual, its walls holding secrets that no verdict could truly erase. Angela Brooks's story became a symbol, a reminder of how silence can kill, and how even in her final moments, she tried to speak through that chilling message on the wall. He laughed. A message that exposed everything. If you've watched this far, tell me in the comments what you think really happened that night. Was it revenge, or was it something darker, a game of power that simply went too far? And let me know where you're watching from. Don't forget to subscribe for more real stories like this, because behind every case like Angela's, there's another truth waiting to be uncovered. Until then, stay safe, stay curious, and I'll see you on the next one.